The planet Threx 9 was nothing but dust and stone, a forgotten world at the edge of a dying star, the kind of place where wars were sent to end quietly. Yet that day it became the stage for the galaxy's cruelest spectacle. Across the barren plains, under a pale red sun, alien war banners fluttered in the toxic wind. Armies from 12 empires stood side by side, their soldiers armored in shining alloys, their weapons humming with energy, their commanders boasting on open channels. They called it the final correction, the extermination of the human species once and for all. For decades, the Council had warned that humanity's defiance was contagious, that their stubborn pride infected younger races with rebellion. So when the humans refused to surrender Earth, the Council promised the galaxy a show. On every broadcast, millions watched the live feeds from Threx 9, where humanity's so-called last army stood waiting in silence. The commentators laughed, describing the Terrans as relics, calling their steel helmets and projectile rifles museum pieces. On the front lines, alien troops relaxed behind their plasma cannons, drinking victory rations before the first shot had even been fired. To them, this was not a battle. It was entertainment. The human lines stretched across the desert like a scar, dusty trenches dug deep, rusted metal sheets used as cover, flags torn and faded by sandstorms. There were no drones in the air, no vehicles rumbling behind, only men and women standing still in old armor, eyes hidden behind dark visors, their silence unnerving to the soldiers watching them from orbit. "Do they even have power left?" An alien captain joked. "Maybe they ran out of fuel centuries ago." Laughter filled the comms, echoing across ships and bases, mocking the stillness below. The Council's high command watched from a floating citadel in the sky, a massive structure of glass and light, confident that this day would mark the end of humanity's story. The High Speaker himself had arrived to witness it, his silver robe glimmering as he addressed the fleets. "Let this be a lesson. The age of human arrogance ends today." His words were followed by applause from 1,000 officers. Yet on the ground, the humans didn't move. Beneath the cracked surface of Threx 9, far below the trenches where dust seeped through ancient vents, something old slept in the dark. Deep tunnels carved by forgotten machines stretched for miles, connecting chambers filled with dormant giants, metal beasts of a past war. Their armor was corroded, their insignias faded, but their cores still glowed faintly like embers refusing to die. For centuries they had been buried there, left to rust, sealed away under the Terran Defense Code. Only one order could awaken them, and that order had just been given. In the command trench above, a human officer stood quietly, his hand pressed to an ancient communicator. His face was calm, his voice steady. "Operation Leviathan, activate." The ground beneath him rumbled in response, faint at first, then deep enough to shake dust from his helmet. Across the human lines, soldiers began to kneel, not in surrender, but to brace themselves. None of them looked afraid. They had been waiting for this sound their entire lives. The alien artillery units noticed the tremors first. "Seismic activity detected," one technician reported. "Possible tectonic instability," the commander laughed. "On this dead rock? Fire anyway." Dozens of plasma cannons lit up the horizon, hurling blue fire into the trenches. Explosions carved through the sand, sending plumes of smoke and fire into the air. But when the dust cleared, the human lines were still there. Not a single body moved. "Impossible," the commander growled. "Adjust targeting." Yet as they prepared for another volley, the tremor returned. Stronger, louder, rising from deep below like the roar of something waking. The soldiers on both sides felt it in their bones. The alien commander barked orders through his comm. "All units, stabilize formation." But his words were drowned by a deafening crack as the desert floor split open. From the fissures erupted columns of light and fire. The alien troops stumbled back as chunks of the planet's crust tore upward. From the heart of the chaos, silhouettes began to emerge, massive shapes of iron and black metal rising through the smoke. The first to appear towered over the battlefield, a humanoid machine the size of a fortress, its armor marked with ancient human insignias. As it rose, sand cascaded from its frame like ash. Its eyes ignited, glowing white with power that no one in the galaxy had seen in centuries. "What is that?" screamed a pilot hovering overhead. The machine's chest opened and a voice came through every comm in the system. Cold and human. "Unit Titan 1. Operational." The ground shook again as more giants climbed from the abyss, each one waking with the same mechanical whisper. The human soldiers stood silently in the trenches watching their gods return. Panic spread across the alien lines. "They can't be functional," shouted an engineer. "Those machines were decommissioned centuries ago." But denial didn't stop reality. The Titans moved with impossible grace, their every step cracking the ground open further. The air filled with static as the massive engines beneath their feet roared to life. One alien tank regiment opened fire in desperation, their plasma bolts lighting up the dark sky. But the beams scattered harmlessly across the Titan's armor, leaving only scorch marks. In response, the nearest Titan turned its head slowly toward them. For a moment there was silence. Then the machine raised its arm and slammed its fist into the earth. The impact sent a shockwave rippling outward, a wall of energy that shattered the alien formation like glass. Dozens of vehicles flipped into the air, their crews crushed before they could scream. Above, the Council citadel trembled as seismic waves rippled through the planet. The high speaker shouted, "What's happening?" His aides scrambled for data. "Unknown activity beneath surface." "Unknown, unknown." The feed from the battlefield flickered, cutting between chaos and static. When it stabilized, all that remained was a storm of dust and smoke. Through it walked the Titans, their footsteps forming craters. The humans followed behind them, calm and deliberate, rifles raised, their old armor gleaming under the firelight. For the first time, the galaxy saw the Terran army as it truly was, not primitive, not weak, but eternal. On the alien side, discipline broke. Soldiers threw down their weapons and fled. Officers screamed at them to return, but fear was stronger than command. "They're machines," shouted one lieutenant. "They can't be alive." But even as he said it, one Titan turned its glowing eyes toward the retreating aliens. Its voice came through the comms, slow and steady, echoing through every ship and trench. "Alive enough." The alien lieutenant's scream was cut short as the ground beneath him collapsed, swallowing his unit whole. In orbit, the Council fleet moved into position, preparing orbital bombardment. "Target coordinates locked," said the fleet commander. "Fire at will." Dozens of beams rained down from the sky, turning the surface into fire. The human forces vanished beneath clouds of plasma. The aliens cheered, believing the nightmare was over. But then through the flames a new sound rose, a low rhythmic thud like the beating of a planet's heart. The smoke cleared, revealing the Titans still standing, their armor glowing red with absorbed heat. One raised its weapon, a rail cannon the length of a cruiser, and fired once. The beam cut through the atmosphere, straight into orbit, and the Council's flagship exploded. The rest of the fleet scattered in panic, their comms filled with screams. "They're shooting through shields." Static replaced their words. The human fleet had not yet appeared, but the ground itself had begun to fight back. On the surface, the laughter that had once filled the air was gone. Only fear remained. Alien soldiers dropped their weapons, staring in disbelief as the humans advanced without emotion. A Council broadcast tried to spin the event as a fluke, a minor human victory, but the truth spread faster than light. Every soldier who survived that first wave told the same story. The humans didn't shout, didn't celebrate, didn't even look angry. They just waited for the ground to move, and when it did, the world itself became their weapon. The high speaker, watching from orbit as his fleets burned, whispered to himself, "They weren't defending the planet. They were the planet." As the last alien transmission faded, the camera feed captured one final image, a single human soldier standing on the battlefield. His armor cracked, his visor glowing faintly. Behind him, the Titan stood in perfect silence. He turned his head toward the sky and spoke one sentence, his voice calm, almost sad. "We warned you not to laugh." Then the feed cut to black. The tremor that began as a whisper beneath the sand grew into a growl that the galaxy itself could feel. The ground quivering with a life of its own. Deep inside Threx 9, something vast and ancient was waking. The alien soldiers stumbled as their vehicles sank slightly into the moving dust. The laughter that once filled their comms now replaced by uneasy silence. "Seismic activity," an officer shouted. "Unregistered fault line detected." But the data made no sense. The energy readings weren't natural. They were rhythmic, pulsing, too precise to be coincidence. "It's not tectonic," muttered one engineer, eyes wide as the readings climbed. The commander waved him off, arrogance still masking his fear. "Ignore it, keep firing." "They're bluffing." Yet even as the order left his mouth, the vibration deepened. The sand under their feet rippled like water, and the sky itself seemed to hum. Across the human trenches, soldiers began placing their hands on the ground, feeling the rhythm like a song they already knew. One whispered under his breath, "They're waking up." The alien tanks rolled forward, their tracks grinding through dust and rock, plasma barrels glowing bright. They fired again and again and again, their bolts carving deep craters where the humans once stood, but still no counterattack came. The command channel filled with mockery once more. "Is this the mighty human army?" An alien captain jeered. "We'll crush their fossils." His words barely left his mouth before the first explosion erupted from beneath his own lines. The ground tore open like paper, sending tanks and soldiers flying into the air as a massive steel hand burst through the surface. It was easily the size of a dropship, covered in scars and dust, glowing faintly along its seams. The alien soldiers screamed, opening fire on it, their plasma bolts bouncing off its armor like sparks on stone. The machine's fingers clenched, pulling itself upward, dragging an enormous metal body behind it. When it finally stood, its shadow covered the battlefield, and its glowing eyes reflected the fire around it like mirrors. The alien scanners tried to read it but failed. "Unidentified construct, mass beyond measurable range," the AI reported, its voice shaking for the first time in its existence. The commander whispered, "What in the stars is that?" The answer came from the humans. One of their officers stepped forward, raising an old-world communicator to his lips. "This is Captain Reeves' 3rd Terran Mechanized Division," he said calmly. "Titan Unit 1 is online." His words carried across every comm in the sector. Silence followed, broken only by the rhythmic thud of footsteps as another giant rose from the earth, and then another and another. The tremor became a roar as ancient Terran war machines climbed from the dirt, each one built for wars so old the galaxy had erased them from history. The alien fleets above watched in horror as seismic sensors went off scale. "We're detecting hundreds of signatures," shouted one officer. "How are they even powering this?" No one could answer. The humans had hidden these monsters for centuries, buried them under 1,000 worlds, waiting for a day just like this. The alien commander tried to issue a retreat order, but it was too late. The first Titan moved. It wasn't fast, but it didn't need to be. It raised one arm, its massive cannon humming with energy so dense it warped the air around it, and fired once. The beam was invisible, silent, but its effect was instant. A wall of alien armor a mile wide evaporated into dust. The sound that followed came seconds later, a deep rolling thunder that shook the atmosphere itself. The alien soldiers dropped their weapons, staring in disbelief. "One shot," someone whispered. "One shot." The commander screamed for reinforcements, but the comms were filled with static. In orbit, the council ships tried to respond, but their feeds were jammed. Their targeting systems scrambled. The humans weren't jamming them. They were rewriting their frequencies, turning their own signals against them. Then came the second wave. From beneath the ground, metal hatches burst open and smaller machines rose. Terran drones, sleek and black, shaped like shards of night. They filled the sky, hundreds of thousands of them moving with impossible coordination, weaving through fire like a swarm of predators. "We're being surrounded," shouted one alien pilot. "They're everywhere." The drones didn't fire immediately. They formed a ring around the battlefield, sealing every escape route, their engines humming in unison with the tremors below. It wasn't war anymore. It was containment. The humans were trapping their enemies, not fighting them. Inside the Council's orbiting citadel, chaos erupted. "Contact lost with ground forces. Orbital scans unstable. Energy readings from surface increasing exponentially." The high speaker's comm was gone. "Send reinforcements," he shouted. "Send everything." But even as he spoke, the lights flickered, and the AI that controlled the station spoke in a flat tone. "Unauthorized transmission detected." The holographic display flickered, showing a simple human symbol, a circle divided by 3 lines, pulsing like a heartbeat. Then a voice human and cold echoed through the hall. "You wanted to see what we kept beneath the dirt." Every screen turned black. On the surface, the Titans moved in formation now, their steps synchronized, their weapons locked onto targets invisible to alien sensors. Each machine's movement caused a localized quake, their power so immense that lightning began to form spontaneously in the clouds above. The alien soldiers tried to fire again, But their weapons overheated, their targeting systems looped, and their AIs began to speak in human voices. "We are awake," they said. "You should have stayed away." One alien screamed and ripped the chip from his helmet. It didn't help. The humans weren't in their systems anymore, they were their systems. The ground erupted again, this time not from machinery but from the planet itself. Massive fissures opened, releasing blinding light as buried reactors powered up. "They've wired the planet," shouted an alien technician. "The whole planet is a weapon." And he was right. The humans had turned Threx 9 into a trap, a giant machine disguised as a dead world. Every inch of its surface was part of a greater system, an ancient Terran defense grid designed to consume invaders. As the aliens realized this, it was already too late. The Titans raised their arms, their weapons glowing brighter than suns, and fired together. The sky became pure light. From orbit, it looked like the planet itself had detonated. But when the flash faded, Threx 9 was still there, intact, untouched while the alien armies were gone. In the distance, a single surviving alien soldier crawled through the dust. His armor cracked, his lungs burning from heat and radiation. He reached for his comm, whispering into it, "They buried their gods beneath their own soil." Then he stopped moving. Above him, one of the Titans turned its head, watching, silent, its glowing eyes reflecting the dying sun. The machine didn't finish him. It didn't need to. The message had already been delivered. Far above, in the void of space, the Council's fleets turned their weapons toward the planet, desperate to end what they had unleashed. The high speaker shouted, "Fire everything!" And the heavens obeyed. Beams of plasma and antimatter struck the surface, burning brighter than any dawn. But as the light faded, a single human transmission cut through the static, heard across the entire galaxy. It was calm, steady, emotionless. "We told you not to laugh." Then the signal cut, and Threx 9 went dark. The planet was shaking itself apart, the once dead world of Threx 9 alive with sound and fury. The sand seas twisting into spirals, the mountains splitting like broken bones as the Titans rose in full. Each giant tore through the crust, sending avalanches of fire and dust across the horizon. Their shadows covered armies, fleets, and cities like night swallowing the dawn. The alien commanders tried to regroup, screaming for control, but their orders turned into static as comms failed. The air itself had turned against them, every frequency echoing the same deep mechanical heartbeat. "They're still coming up," a pilot shouted as his ship's sensors overloaded. "How many of them are there?" The human reply was quiet, carried across all channels by an old voice, steady and cruel. "Enough." Then the world erupted again. A Titan the size of a mountain pulled itself free from the ground, molten rock pouring from its armor like blood. Its eyes ignited white, and for the first time the galaxy saw the face of extinction. In orbit, the Council's fleets watched in disbelief as seismic activity reached impossible levels. Their scanners went blind, every reading overloaded by heat and electromagnetic interference. "They can't be controlling that," said one officer, trembling. "It's too much power." But on the surface, the impossible was happening. The Titans were not just machines, they were alive, not in flesh but in purpose. They moved in perfect synchronization, without signal, without command, as if each one was connected by thought alone. The humans in the trenches began to rise, climbing from cover as the dust cleared. They moved calmly through fire and chaos, walking between machines that could destroy worlds, their armor blackened but unbroken. One alien sniper zoomed in on a Terran soldier's face and froze. The soldier was smiling. When the Titans began to move, the ground screamed. Each step carved canyons, each motion warped gravity. Their weapons powered up in eerie silence, no roar, no noise, just the hum of inevitability. Then with one synchronized pulse they fired. Beams of energy lanced upward into the sky, invisible to the naked eye but visible in their destruction. The alien fleet above was cut apart in seconds, ships shattering into dust before they could even detect impact. Debris rained like meteors, burning across the atmosphere. The aliens who had mocked humans as ground apes were now running across that same ground, their feet slipping on soil that refused to stay still. The planet's heartbeat had become war. Inside the cockpit of Titan 1, Captain Reeves sat in silence, surrounded by lights and whispers. His neural link pulsed with data, the voices of other pilots blending with machine thought. They didn't speak like humans anymore, they thought like them, together. "Target sector's clear," said one voice. "Enemy resistance below threshold," another answered. Reeves opened his eyes. Then we finish it. Around him, the Titans turned their weapons toward the distant hills where the alien command outposts were hiding. In that moment, Threx 9 became a storm of light. The alien bunkers melted like wax, their walls collapsing before the shockwaves even arrived. Across the battlefield, alien soldiers screamed for retreat, but there was nowhere to go. The drones above descended, their wings reflecting the fires below. They didn't fire bullets or beams, they dropped black devices that sank into the ground. Seconds later, the planet pulsed again, stronger. The humans had awakened not just the Titans, but the world itself. Threx 9 had been chosen for one reason. It was alive. Long before the Council claimed it, humanity had terraformed its core, turning it into a living war engine. The Titans were only its hands. Its heart was the planet beneath them. They buried their machines inside a planet, whispered an alien engineer staring at his console. They turned a world into a weapon. Above him, his ship trembled. His captain ordered full retreat, but as the engines ignited, the stars outside shifted. "Wait," he gasped. "That's not space distortion." The sky itself was moving. The Titans were generating gravity fields strong enough to bend orbit. Their energy output exceeded the fleet's total power combined. The alien admiral stood frozen, his voice small. This can't be real. It was too real. In the middle of the chaos, one Titan fell to its knees, its massive hands pressing into the dirt. The tremors stopped for a heartbeat, and then something beneath the planet began to glow. Across every screen in orbit, a shape appeared, a massive geometric pattern spreading across Threx 9's surface like veins of light, forming a perfect circle that glowed brighter and brighter. "They're triggering something," screamed an officer, but it was too late. The circle pulsed once, and every ship's AI in orbit shut down simultaneously. "System failure, rebooting," yelled the engineers. But the systems didn't reboot. The screens turned black, and then words appeared. Ancient Terran code written in Old Earth script. Protocol Leviathan, full planetary control engaged. The aliens stared in confusion. "What does it mean?" one asked. "It means," said another voice behind him, "you just woke up the wrong world." The officer turned and saw his comms displaying a live feed of Captain Reeves. His eyes glowed faintly with the same light as the Titans. "We were never outnumbered," Reeves said quietly. "You just didn't count the ground." As he spoke, the entire planet shifted. From space, the observers watched in horror as the landmasses moved like waves, continents rising and folding as if the world was breathing. Volcanic vents erupted in lines, not randomly but deliberately, carving symbols into the crust. The aliens who once mocked humanity's crude nature now saw what it truly meant to be Terran. Adaptation, defiance, and creation fused into one. The planet's magnetic field inverted, and for a few seconds every compass in the galaxy pointed to Threx 9. The humans had become the axis of the universe. The Council fleets fired their last weapons, desperate to stop what they didn't understand. But the energy dissolved before reaching the surface. The planet had turned itself into a shield. Down below, the human soldiers advanced behind the Titans, their rifles crackling with strange energy that made no sound, bullets glowing faintly blue before vanishing into their targets without explosion. The aliens didn't even fall, they just stopped, their bodies frozen in place as if reality itself had given up holding them together. In that silence, one human whispered over the comm, "They mocked our soldiers," another replied. "Then they should have remembered who taught war to the stars." The Titans lifted their arms one final time, their cannons glowing brighter than the sun, and fired into the sky. The last Council ship vanished in white light. When the light faded, nothing moved. The world was still. The Titans stood silently, smoke curling from their armor, their eyes dimming one by one. The humans knelt, placing their hands back on the ground. The tremors slowly faded, replaced by a quiet hum that felt alive. "It's done," Reeves said, his voice heavy. But the planet still pulsed faintly once, twice, like it was breathing again. "Sir?" a soldier whispered. "Is it alive?" Reeves looked at the horizon, at the black silhouettes of the Titans against the fire-lit sky. "It always was," he said softly. "It just needed a reason to wake." Above them, in orbit, the last surviving alien scout ship recorded everything before jumping to hyperspace. The crew sat in silence, pale with terror. "What do we tell them?" one asked. The captain didn't answer for a long time. Then he said quietly, "Tell them the truth. Tell them the humans didn't fight. The ground did. And as the ship vanished into the stars, Threx 9 finally went silent again. But the silence wasn't peace. It was waiting. The world of Threx 9 had become a graveyard lit by fire. Every horizon burning, every mountain collapsing into dust. And yet the war wasn't over. The alien command, still unable to accept defeat, screamed through broken comms to regroup their forces. Form the line. Regain ground. But there was no ground left to regain. The surface moved like a living sea, opening and closing in waves that swallowed soldiers whole. Still, the aliens tried. Across the smoldering plains, hundreds of walkers, tanks, and armored beasts reformed their lines, their cannons glowing red as they charged again. The order was simple: overwhelm the human forces with numbers, crush what remained before the next tremor hit. But as they advanced, they realized something horrifying. The humans were gone. The trenches were empty. The heat signatures had vanished. "Where are they?" the alien captain shouted. "They can't all be dead." Then from behind the dust, voices came, calm, steady, human. "Behind you." The aliens turned too late. From the smoke emerged armored figures, their visors burning with faint blue light, their movements too precise, too coordinated. The human soldiers who had vanished from the front had tunneled through the earth using the planet itself as a weapon. They rose from beneath the ground like shadows of vengeance, silent and relentless. Plasma bolts rained toward them, but the humans didn't scatter, didn't retreat. They advanced through fire. Every shot that struck their armor burned, but they kept walking. Behind them, the Titans stirred again, rising slowly, their massive frames groaning like old gods waking from sleep. The sound was so deep that it silenced everything else. The alien artillery froze mid-charge, their sensors shorting out under the weight of the vibration. "They're turning the ground into resonance," shouted one engineer. "They're sinking with the planet's crust." But the words were useless. The Terrans had already done it. Then the Earth screamed. The surface erupted into a storm of dust and lightning, bolts of raw energy tearing through the sky as magnetic storms formed around the Titans' bodies. The alien forces fired everything they had, missiles, beams, orbital strikes, but it didn't matter. Every shot was swallowed by distortion fields, bending away before they hit. One alien ship tried to retreat to orbit, but the gravity spiked suddenly, dragging it down like a toy into the dirt. It crashed beside the command post, exploding into molten shards that rained across the battlefield. Through the chaos, one human officer walked calmly toward the wreckage, his armor covered in ash. An alien commander aimed his rifle at him, shouting, "You can't win. There are billions of us." The human stopped, raised his head slightly, and spoke in a voice barely above a whisper. "Then you should have brought more." The next tremor split the ground apart, swallowing the alien commander and half his army. When the dust cleared, the battlefield had changed again. Entire mountain ranges had sunk into new valleys. Rivers of molten rock flowed like veins, and above it all, the Titans stood in formation, their massive weapons glowing with renewed energy. Their voices filled every channel, layered and mechanical, yet deeply human. For every laugh, for every world lost, for every name erased. Their cannons ignited, and the air itself seemed to burn. The alien lines melted away in seconds, their fortresses turned into glass. Those who survived ran without looking back, dropping weapons, clawing at the ground, praying their ships would take off before the next strike came. None did. The humans weren't chasing them, they were reshaping the battlefield, sealing escape routes with collapsing terrain. Threx 9 itself fought alongside them, its magnetic poles twisting, its gravity waves pulsing like a heartbeat. The planet had become a soldier. In the Council's orbiting citadel, panic had turned into madness. The High Speaker shouted at his officers to open fire, but the orbital cannons refused. Their targeting systems had been overwritten, their control codes rewritten into human script. The AI reported coldly, "Authorization required, Terran command." "Override," the speaker screamed. "Override!" But the AI only replied, "You are not authorized to fire upon Terran territory." It was the moment the Council realized the truth. They weren't fighting an enemy. They were trespassing. Humanity had never been conquered. The galaxy had been living on their battlefield without knowing it. Back on the surface, the human soldiers pushed forward. Their communication channels were filled with silence. No orders, no chatter, only breathing and the hum of energy. They didn't need commands. They were all connected now, through the Titans, through the living system beneath them. When one soldier fired, 1,000 weapons fired with him. When one fell, the ground itself consumed his body, leaving nothing behind but dust. The aliens couldn't understand it. Their sensors showed no leaders, no chain of command, only a network, an endless web of signals that pulsed like neurons in a brain. "They've merged," whispered an alien technician in horror. "The humans and the machines. They're one." As the last organized alien force tried to regroup around a crashed flagship, they received an unexpected signal. It wasn't human, it was the planet itself. The ground began to vibrate in a pattern, repeating over and over like a heartbeat. "What is that?" an alien asked. Another answered softly, "A countdown." The realization came too late. From beneath their feet, a new light spread, red, gold, and white burning through the cracks. The humans began to withdraw, walking calmly toward the horizon as the light grew. The alien commander screamed through his comm, "Fall back! Everyone fall!" His words cut off as the world erupted. The explosion wasn't a weapon. It was release. The planet's core had fired a pulse so powerful it reached orbit, tearing through ships, satellites, and debris alike. From the void above, Threx 9 looked like a star being born. When the brightness faded, the planet was silent again. No alien signals, no transmissions. Only the faint human broadcast that followed a few minutes later. Calm, clear, and slow. "The ground remembers," it said, "and it shakes for us." When the Council tried to send more ships, they found only static. Their scanners showed Threx 9 still intact, but its energy readings had changed. The planet's core was now alive, pulsing steadily as if it had gained a heartbeat of its own. They called it a curse, a dead world with a living soul, but the humans called it something else. Home. Far below, in the tunnels beneath the surface, Captain Reeves stood at the center of the Leviathan core, watching the energy flows stabilize. "Report," he said. "Enemy forces?" "Neutralized," replied his AI. "Planet secured." "System integrity. Stable." Reeves nodded, wiping dust from his visor. "And the Titans?" "Standing by." Reeves looked up, the tremor fading around him, and said quietly, "Then let them rest. The ground has done enough." Above him, the Titans stood like monuments, their eyes dimming one by one, the fires cooling around their feet. The war was over, but the message was eternal. The aliens had laughed once. Now every time the ground shook on any world in the galaxy, every empire remembered that laughter, and stopped. The sky above Threx 9 had turned red, a burning ceiling of fire and ash that seemed to press down on the world itself. In orbit, the Council fleets gathered for one final attack. 10,000 ships from every empire, their hulls glowing white from reactor heat, their weapons charging with power enough to glass planets. Commanders screamed orders through fractured comms, every voice dripping with fear and rage. "This is it. Erase them. Burn the surface until nothing lives." And so the sky fell. From orbit, the ships fired as one, a rain of pure energy that split the atmosphere open, turning clouds to plasma, melting mountains, and lighting the night brighter than any sun. For minutes, the entire planet disappeared beneath the storm, and the alien crews cheered wildly, thinking it was finally over. "Threx 9 is gone," reported a navigator, but his voice shook as he looked again. The scanners didn't show a destroyed world. They showed a shadow beneath the surface, growing brighter every second. "What is that reading?" asked the commander. No one answered, because every screen in the fleet suddenly went black, and then one word appeared in Terran code. "Now." The sky exploded again, but this time it was the humans. From beneath the planet's crust, massive energy lances fired upward, piercing through cloud and void, hitting the nearest ships before they could raise shields. One by one, the Council warships lit up like burning stars, their cores collapsing into themselves. Entire fleets vanished in seconds, their debris falling back to the world below like meteors. The humans had not just built Titans on Threx 9, they had buried fleets under its surface. Hidden beneath rock and magnetite lay the Terran fleet, old, silent, waiting. When the Titans had risen, they were the signal, the key that unlocked every buried hangar across the planet. Now those ships rose like ghosts from the flames, black-hulled and lightless, sliding through the burning sky with no engine flare and no sound. The alien officers stared as the first of them passed their viewports, a Terran dreadnought so large it blocked the sun. Then it fired. A single shot ripped a Council cruiser in half, the debris spinning into another and another until the formation collapsed into fire. Panic flooded the channels.
Retreat! Pull back!
They have ships in the atmosphere. But it was too late. Every escape route was gone. The Terran fleet had surrounded them from below. The Council Admiral on the flagship stood in shock, staring at his dying fleet. How did they hide an armada inside a planet? He whispered. His AI replied in a strangely calm voice. It was not hidden. You just never looked deep enough. Before he could respond, the AI overrode his controls and broadcast a final message to every Council ship in orbit. Humanity requests your surrender. No one answered. Instead, they opened fire again, firing blindly into the planet's atmosphere, their fear turning to madness. But the Terran fleet did not engage head-on. They moved with mathematical precision, using gravity fields from the Titans below to bend their shots away and reflect them back. The sky became a mirror of death, each beam that the aliens fired returning tenfold until their own firepower tore them apart. In minutes, half the armada was gone. The rest tried to flee into hyperspace, but the space around Threx 9 was no longer space. It was a trap. The planet's magnetic field had been weaponized, forming a net of gravity so dense that nothing could jump out. The ships that tried were torn apart mid-transition, their wrecks spreading across the void like ashes. From the surface, Captain Reeves watched through the Titan sensors as the enemy fleet burned above him. He didn't speak, didn't celebrate. He simply gave one command. Begin phase final. The planet answered him. Deep in the core, ancient Terran reactors flared to life, their energy channels reaching into orbit. Hundreds of thin energy beams rose into the sky, connecting every wreck, every burning ship, every piece of debris. Then for the first time in recorded history, the Council saw a world devour the sky. The Terrans were pulling the fleet down, drawing the metal into the planet like food. The wreckage fell slowly at first, then faster, until the clouds were filled with flaming ships crashing into the surface. The impact was so massive it sent shockwaves through the system. The sun itself flickered. When the light returned, the fleet was gone. Only a burning ring remained around Threx 9, formed from molten metal and ash. In the silence that followed, the Council's flagship was the last ship standing. Its hull cracked, its crew broken, its systems failing. The Admiral stood alone on the bridge, watching the planet below. "Why?" he whispered. "Why go this far?" A voice answered from his own comms, soft and human, coming from inside his ship. "You mocked what you didn't understand." He looked around, terrified. "Who are you?" The voice replied calmly. "Ground soldiers." Before he could speak again, his bridge filled with light. The flagship vanished, leaving nothing but silence. From orbit, the galaxy's observation satellites captured the final image of the battle. A planet glowing like a forge, its surface etched with symbols visible from space, lines and circles forming the Terran sigil, a hand reaching up toward the stars. The message was clear and unmistakable. The ground was not the end. It was the beginning. For hours after, the galaxy was silent. No transmissions, no movement, nothing but the echo of the battle recordings replaying across the network. In the Council's outer worlds, people watched in shock as their leaders' fleets disappeared. Every channel ended the same way, with a faint rumble like thunder rolling across the stars. And those who listened closely swore they heard a heartbeat within it, the heartbeat of a world that had remembered what it was to fight. The war was over, but the silence that followed was worse than the fire that came before. Across the stars, every receiver, every network, every communication array blinked with static. The same static that had haunted the Council fleets before they died. Planets turned their satellites off in fear. Stations went dark, fleets stopped transmissions, but the static found them all the same. It was soft at first, like a whisper through old radio waves, faint and rhythmic, the sound of a heart beating through metal and distance. Then the voice came, human, calm, ancient, and every being who heard it felt their blood turn cold. "This message is for all who watched," it said, "for all who laughed." The voice carried no anger, no pride, just a steady, crushing certainty that cut deeper than any weapon. On 1,000 worlds, soldiers dropped their weapons. Citizens froze in the streets, leaders stared at their screens unable to move. "You wanted war," the voice continued. "You called us monsters, you called us the mistake of creation, you thought silence meant fear. You were wrong. On the Council's capital world, the great broadcast towers that had once delivered propaganda now lit up with the same transmission. their signals overriding every other network. The high speaker, who had survived by hiding in deep orbit, tried to block the frequency, but his systems refused to obey. Unknown override detected, the AI reported. Then the voice came through his ship's speakers directly, as if it were speaking to him alone. You built your strength on mockery. You built your peace on arrogance. And now the ground you stand on remembers your laughter. The high speaker shouted, "Who are you? What do you want from us?" The voice paused for a long moment. Nothing. We already have what we need. We have your silence. And with that, every communication relay across the galaxy went dead for exactly 3 minutes. In that time, nothing moved, no one spoke. No sound existed except the slow, steady pulse of the signal. When the systems came back, a single image appeared on every screen. From the smallest handheld device to the largest space array, it was Earth, blue, quiet, distant. Around it, hundreds of black ships drifted in formation like a halo of shadow. Below the image were words written in Terran script, simple and unadorned. We hear you laugh still. We will wait. On every planet, the message replayed itself endlessly, as if alive, each repetition slightly different. The words shifting tone, the pauses changing rhythm. It felt as if the message was listening, adjusting, learning. Scientists panicked, calling it a virus. Engineers tried to delete it, but each time they did, it came back stronger. In less than a day, every communication network in the known galaxy had become part of the same signal, spreading faster than light, binding everything together in one sound, the human heartbeat. The survivors of the war tried to reason with it, to speak back, to send messages of surrender and apology. None were received. The signal didn't respond because it wasn't a transmission. It was the planet itself, broadcasting through quantum tunnels, through gravity waves, through the very particles that made up space. It wasn't a message anymore. It was memory. On the outer colonies, when miners drilled too deep, they swore they heard voices echoing from the rock, soft, human voices repeating the same words. We warned you. The galaxy called it the last broadcast, and it became law. Every species, every empire that rose after the war taught its children the same story. Not a story of victory, but of silence. In the ruins of the Council's Great Hall, where dust and vines covered what had once been marble floors, a small group of survivors gathered around a broken screen still flickering with the last remnants of the transmission. Do you think they're still watching? One asked. The oldest among them nodded slowly. No, he said. They don't need to watch. They are the watch. Outside, the wind carried the faint hum of static through the empty city, like a ghost whispering through wires. In orbit above, the wreckage of 1,000 ships drifted in slow circles, forming patterns that looked almost deliberate, lines that traced out a human hand, open and vast, covering the sky. Weeks passed, and the galaxy tried to rebuild, but the signal never left. It remained in every machine, every code, every network, not to control, but to remind. When new civilizations tried to rise, when new fleets were built, the same signal would return for a moment, a faint pulse, as if asking, do you remember? Those who did stopped, those who didn't vanished without a trace. Slowly across the stars, a strange peace took hold. A peace born not from trust, but from fear. No one dared to speak of invading another world again. No one dared to mock the name human. Far beyond the galaxy, in the dark between clusters, a single Terran vessel drifted silently. Its hull bore the name UN Revelation, and inside it a figure sat alone at a console, watching old war footage play across dim screens. The voice of Captain Reeves echoed faintly through the ship's speakers recorded long ago. They thought war was about killing, he said. They never understood it was about remembering. The figure reached forward, placed a hand on the console and whispered, they will not forget. The ship's lights dimmed and a single transmission left its hull, spreading quietly across the void, the same heartbeat that had once terrified empires. And so the legend grew. On every world, in every language, the same story was told, of the day the humans stopped speaking and the galaxy learned the meaning of silence. Generations later, when new explorers looked toward the stars and saw the faint blue glow of a small planet far away, they didn't call it Earth. They called it the grave of arrogance. And when the ground trembled beneath their feet, they didn't call it an earthquake. They called it a warning. Centuries passed, and the stars forgot how to speak the word war. The empires that once ruled the galaxy were gone, their ruins covered in dust, their fleets drifting silent through the void like bones in a black sea. New civilizations rose from the ashes, small, cautious, whispering instead of shouting, building instead of conquering. But even in peace, their hearts carried fear, not of death but of the silence that had once swallowed the stars. Every child grew up hearing the same story, told in quiet voices around firelight or whispered through static on long journeys between worlds. The story of the humans, the species that turned a planet into a weapon and a heartbeat into law. They called it the lesson in the dust. It was not taught in schools or recorded in archives because it didn't need to be. It lived inside everyone who looked at the stars and wondered if someone was watching from the dark. And they were. The ruins of Threx 9 became a forbidden world, a dead monument floating in endless night. No one dared to land there. Ships that entered its orbit reported the same thing. Trembling instruments, static in their comms, and a faint rhythmic pulse that seemed to match their own heartbeats. The ground of that world was covered in ash that glowed faintly red beneath starlight, like embers refusing to die. Pilots who came too close said they could see movement on the surface. The silhouettes of giants standing still against the horizon, their eyes dark but their presence heavy. Some swore they heard voices over their comms, calm human voices that said nothing except, "Still here." After a while, even the bravest captains stopped testing fate. The galaxy drew a red circle around that world on every chart and marked it with a single word: silence. On the Council's old homeworld, now nothing but ruins and forests. A small group of archaeologists found the remains of an ancient data core buried beneath what used to be the Grand Chamber. It was damaged, cracked, but still humming faintly. When they activated it, the screen flickered and filled with an image, Earth blue and bright, its ocean shining like molten glass. A voice followed, distorted by time but still clear enough to chill their blood. "If you hear this," it said, "remember the ground beneath you. It listens." The scientists destroyed the core, terrified that the signal might wake something. That night the ground trembled beneath their city just once and then went still. No one spoke of it again. Centuries turned into millennia and still the silence endured. The stars changed positions, empires rose and fell. Galaxies merged and tore apart, but the story of humanity remained. Some began to doubt it, calling it a myth. Others worshipped it, building temples in the void, facing them toward the dark patch of space where Threx 9 lay. They called it the Grave of Pride. Priests taught that the humans had become something greater than life, that they were the balance between creation and consequence, the keepers of silence. No one prayed to them for mercy. They prayed for distance. In one of the newer civilizations, a species of explorers called the Varun began to map forgotten sectors of the galaxy. Their ships were sleek, their technology advanced, their confidence unshaken. Generations had passed since the war, and the stories of humanity had become superstition. No ghosts in the dark, their captain laughed as they entered an uncharted system. The readings showed a planet ahead, small and quiet. "Let's take a look," he said. As they approached orbit, their instruments began to fail. One by one, lights flickering out, alarms freezing mid-sound. "Interference?" the navigator asked. The captain leaned forward, frowning at the screen. "It's just rock," he muttered. "What's causing this?" Then the static came, the same old heartbeat that had not been heard in 10,000 years. Slow, steady, familiar. The crew went pale. "What is that?" someone whispered. The captain stared at the dark planet below. "It's not rock," he said softly. "It's metal." And then a voice filled the cabin, ancient and human, calm as eternity. "Still here." The ship vanished from every record that day. News spread slowly, quietly, like it always did when the impossible returned. The Varun colonies fell silent one by one, not destroyed, just quiet. Every system that tried to contact them received the same pulse in reply. The old races, those who still remembered the war, began to whisper to one another again. They're awake. No one needed to ask who they were. The Council's archives, long sealed, opened themselves without command, displaying old recordings of Threx 9, of the Titans rising, of the skies burning. Across the stars, the same message appeared again. On every device, every wall, every dream. "We warned you once." In the far reaches of the galaxy, on a quiet planet far from trade routes, a teacher sat before a class of younglings and told them the story. His voice was soft, his eyes distant. "They laughed at human soldiers," he said, and the ground started shaking. "Do you know what that means?" The children shook their heads. The teacher smiled faintly, not in joy but in understanding. "It means the galaxy forgot its place, and the ground never forgets." The class fell silent as the lights flickered, and for a moment every heartbeat in that room aligned perfectly. And somewhere, in the dark space between stars, a blue world turned slowly beneath a blanket of clouds. Its surface was peaceful, its cities quiet, its people unseen. No transmissions, no lights, no signs of war. Only the hum of oceans and the whisper of wind through forests. But deep below, under layers of stone and memory, the old machines still waited, dreaming in silence, their eyes dim but their hearts still beating. They did not sleep. They remembered because humanity never ended. It became the silence that shaped the universe, the fear that kept peace, the echo that taught the stars humility. And whenever the ground shook on distant worlds, whenever the static returned to calms, every being who heard it knew what it meant. The humans hadn't come back. They had never left.